Hi everyone, welcome back to SwitchUp and to a new video. Something a bit new. I thought we could start with this one. This is an idea that's been formulating for a while, and it comes from the idea of what are you playing?
Got something that might interest you.
We often put out a community post to see what people are playing, and we have loads of responses. So we've created a video idea around that. Essentially how it works is you're going to put down in the comments what you've been playing.
Yeah, if you can just write, a small amount about the game itself and how you found it, what it's about, and then from there we'll pick up on that and we'll have a look at the game ourselves and include it in a video. So which games have people been playing? Let's find out.
First up then, it was suggested that we check out a game called Zombieville? Zombiewood. It is Zombiewood because it's based on Hollywood.
That's it, yeah.
Neither Zombieland nor Zombieville. Those are other games.
Yeah, good games.
Good games. Good films as well, I think.
Well,
Well, I quite liked it. So there you go. So this one comes from GameLoft and it's like a top-down twin-stick shooter. I was expecting middling things, I've got to be honest.
It's as you say, it's a top-down shooter based around the idea of movies.
Yeah.
So you'll be finding or completing objectives, that give you film reels, which you can then use as well as like the cash you get from killing the enemies to unlock new costumes or new weapons, and then you go on to the next movie set and have like a save the person from the zombies or escort this person through the park, whatever,
I think some of the storytelling is kind of done through a way that you appreciate because it's those film cases, isn't it, that are kind of adaptions.
Yeah, for sure. That's actually probably my favourite part of the game. The highlight of the game, which doesn't say a huge amount, I must say, but every level has like a faux movie poster.
Yeah.
Obviously based around real movies. So I think the first one you do is like the Japanese original Star Wars movie poster, and just nice little things like that,
See, that's actually like a really nice touch. I think as you're about to find out, it doesn't necessarily push into the other aspects of the game.
No. So you have the story mode, which we've just touched on, and then when you get a short way through that, you unlock survival mode, which is 2-player co-op, obviously. And we were kind of thinking, well, this is where it's going to get. Like not the story mode was bad, but this is where it's going to get more interesting because obviously you can play with a friend. And we played the survival mode, and it just has so many issues, not major ones necessarily, but ones that just start to drag you down a bit and make you feel like. And I hate to say this, but I could be playing something else.
Yeah.
Like that's how your time starts to feel. And it's just things like, it's wave-based, obviously, and the first few waves are fine. The enemies are large in number, but short on health, which is the way it should be, I feel at least. And then you start to get those waves where you've got these huge bullet sponges, and they just take forever, and they're so slow and lumbering, and there's no strategy to it, because even if you try to move around them, they teleport back next to you. And it just becomes a chore, like a serious chore, doesn't it?
It does. It's interesting because obviously we're playing through the story mode and it was okay. They escort a person, kill all these zombies, destroy fire hydrants to put out a car fire. Yeah. It was bang average at that stage, and it was workable. You have like 2 different guns and you can switch between them.
Yes, it was perfectly fine. That word that you try to avoid when you try to be descriptive, but it describes this game perfectly to that point. It was fine. But the co-op, the survival play, there's you don't get weapon drops. You get the weapons that you start with. Your secondary weapon will run out of ammo very, very quickly, and then your primary weapon has infinite ammo, and you just use that for the rest of the wave.
Yeah,
it's just painful. There was no real thought. It felt like such an add-on.
Yeah,
like an afterthought. Where for me, as much as story mode sounds like the main part, it was all about unlocking this mode quickly and having a good time, and it just was disappointing.
Yeah, especially as this is advertised as 2-player co-op, so that's what we were looking for, We kind of thought, all right, that sounds reasonably interesting, we'll go in and try that. But it was, like Glen says, a quick grind to try and unlock the co-op. And interestingly, in the story, you've got like power-ups and stuff, and then you get into that co-op, and while you've still got them, there are things like healing, and by that stage, we were so bored.
Yeah.
Using healing felt like a punishment, didn't it?
It's like, oh dear me, let's grant us another 10 minutes of playtime.
I think the highlight of our co-op session was me disco dancing in the corner.
Yes, that was it was a rare moment of light.
It really was. I mean, we had a bit of a laugh, but for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, we were kind of laughing at it more than with it. And again, I'm not taking the mick out of the game. It just started to, you find ways of making it fun rather than it naturally being fun. And it's quite expensive for what you get.
It is. Well, compare it to your favourite.
Yeah, so Vampire Survivors is not exactly the same sort of game. No. It has enough similarities that I feel you can compare it. And when you're playing that and you're 10 minutes in, you are on the edge of your seat. There's wave after wave, This just plodded along, and it's 3 times the price.
It's 3 times the price, and it bears the hallmarks of a game that's previously existed as a mobile app. And I don't use that in the way that people usually do, where they're like, "Oh, it looks like a mobile game." You know, it's not that. It's the structure of it. You can almost feel the section where it's got the microtransactions in the past. That's now the shop, and you buy skins and stuff. It just hasn't carried across quite as nicely as some of the other titles, even from this publisher.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
One other thing to mention is that the performance is really quite bad. So it starts out again okay in story mode, and then as we got into the survival mode, or there were lots of enemies on screen, it just tanked. It was really dropping down quite consistently and quite significantly.
Yeah, and it wasn't even necessarily enemies on screen, which, they're the times you kind of half expect it. It was like when you used a shotgun.
Yeah.
As you pulled the trigger, the world just stopped for a few seconds, and then everyone woke up. It was just a bit disorientating to have that.
So on balance, as you can see from the score sections on the screen, this little What You're Playing has scored a SwitchUp score of 45%. Not great.
No, not great.
Now what we do want to do though is when a game, you saw what happened there, we'd like to give an alternate pick because we've played lots of games. I think a good choice for people to play that were after a similar feel, quite different experience in terms of how you play, but you still got a twin stick in a way, would be something like The Binding of Isaac.
Yeah, The Binding of Isaac takes the basic premise that this game has taken, but it just ramps everything up with it in terms of production values, as long as you can stomach the aesthetic, because it is quite an acquired taste. But in terms of how you unlock weapons, how they start to combine, and how they make you stronger or not, and that's kind of the rub as you go along, how the levels are structured, just how addictive it is to keep coming back to, how many unlockables you have. Now obviously the caveat with that is that the higher the quality, the higher the price.
Yeah.
So you'll be paying obviously for that extra quality, but this is this is top tier in terms of taking that very simple idea and making it something that at the time felt quite fresh. If you want something a bit cheaper, obviously we've mentioned Vampire Survivors, Potato, any of those are cheaper than the game that we started off talking about, and better. So
the worst thing is you can buy Vampire Survivors and Potato for cheaper than this game.
Yeah, exactly right. So there's certainly some things or some games to consider there if you are interested in the premise, but the execution, as we say, is not quite right.
Yeah. Next up then, we got something entirely different that snuck out, and I was really keen to check this out. And it's a game called GYLT, which doesn't at all describe what it's, the premise of it, the concept of it.
No, that's right. Without giving too much away, the story does actually handle some quite serious themes in terms of the trials and tribulations this young girl was going through in her life, and it's materialised into almost like her mindset as these, the creatures that you'll find as you go along. I won't say too much more than that on the story, but there's definitely more to it than initially meets the eye. Yes, I remember us covering this in the upcoming games, and it certainly caught both of our attention, but as so often happens, it kind of just swept past, and before you know it, it's a couple of weeks later. But it's effectively like a survival horror game to some degree, isn't it?
Yeah, you've got like aliens that have come down, monsters. These monsters have come down. Loads of the tropes that you'd find in even things like Resident Evil, wandering around Silent Hill, abandoned areas. But you play as a young girl who's moving around these areas. She's got her torch in her hand. I will say straight away, visually, this looks decent.
It does look nice, yeah. It has that aesthetic to it where you can almost imagine it being the child's interpretation of what's happening, like kind of personified. It reminded me actually of something like if you took Little Nightmares and made it a third person behind the character experience. Absolutely. As opposed to the side on that game is. And as you say, it has sprinkles of classic survival horror games of old in there as well.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah, it has. You've nailed it. It does. It feels like if you had, like, if Resident Evil or Silent Hill and Little Nightmares had a baby.
Yeah, it would look something like this.
Something
yeah,
like
for
this.
sure.
So yeah, you're going initially around a school area. There are the monsters that you have to evade. It is like that. So it has an awareness system that's been used so many times before, where you have the expanding white arc, you know, and it, once it reaches its maximum, then they go into the cautious state, and then eventually they'll come after you, hiding in a vent. Well, that's what I tended to do more often than not.
Yeah.
You know,
but that's become quite commonplace in horror games these days. You know, the old school, limited amount of ammo.
Yeah, exactly right. So here the limited ammo comes in the form of that torch, and basically you get a more powerful version that allows you to do damage to certain monsters. And you can also like creep up behind them and insta-kill them. But you need to make sure you have batteries, which is the game's version of the old school ammo. While it does work well, I do think it kind of takes away a little bit of the fear factor for me. As soon as I could turn around and kill them, yeah, it just wasn't as scary. But then what they do is they just introduce new monsters that you can't kill in the same way.
And it does work well.
It does. It has a Grimm's fairy tale kind of feel to it. There are a few nice mechanics as well. Like you can shine your torch on the ground and they'll see the beam and go towards the light.
Yes.
And you can use that to get around behind them.
Yeah. I mean, the monsters do look a little goofy, I suppose. But then again, that child interpretation I quite like, you know?
Yeah, it's keeping that fine line, isn't it, between like scary and... It's like somewhere in the middle between an adult and a kid's game.
Yes, yeah, absolutely right. And all in all, actually, it's quite a tidy little game. You know, fair play. It's one of those that you might look at and wonder what you're going to get, quality-wise. But no, it nails is a bit strong, but it does everything it needs to do well.
I'd say so.
It's very solid.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Right. Now, I would say the major negative with regards to this game is the price, really. You know, I mean, price is very subjective, but at £26.99 or your regional equivalent, for about 6 to 8 hours gameplay, I would say it's just quite expensive, isn't it? That's not a knock against the quality of the game. I just think if they'd have just taken it down a kind of a price tier or two, it would have been so much more palatable and definitely much easier to recommend.
Absolutely, yeah. Especially when you consider that Little Nightmares, the double pack, very often goes on sale for £11 for both of them. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's just a little bit too steep, and also a little bit too short.
Sweet.
With all that in mind, it gets a SwitchUp score of 75%.
Alternate picks, we've already said, really. I think that's a good game, doesn't really need an alternative pick, but if you were to look at anything, especially if you can find it on sale, Little Nightmares.
Yeah, Little Nightmares is definitely one I would say. If you want something a bit more action-based, perhaps Heaven Dust or Heaven Dust 2.
Good shout, that's on sale.
Yeah, they go on sale often. I mean, I felt the second one was kind of a late 60s, early 70s, but if you're getting it on sale and you want, as I say, you know, a bit more action in your survival horror, then that's one to go for.
So that's it. That's the first episode of What Are You Playing? Let us know in the comments what you are playing, and we will choose some of those, let the cream rise to the top by liking someone else's, and we'll play a couple of them and come back with another episode.
For sure. Don't forget, if you are looking for eShop credit to pick any of these games up, you can get your eShop cards over at our website, switchup.gg. You get yourself 5% back in cash back, and there's some links down there as well to physical stores where obviously you can pick some physical games up, you get a small discount, we get a little bit of a kickback from some. Yeah, suits everyone, doesn't it?
Everyone's happy. Happy days. Nice one. Thanks to our Patreons and members, all of you who enjoy the content. For all things Switch all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers, guys. See ya!